Everyone thinks love starts with a first kiss. They're wrong. Real love starts with obsession disguised as suspicion. And for Quan Taiyang, it started at exactly 11:52 p.m. when his black maid walked through the door and he realized he'd crossed a line he could never uncross. I'm about to show you what happens when a Korean mafia boss who controls half of Manhattan loses control over the one thing that matters, his heart. And trust me, by the end of this story, you'll understand why some obsessions are worth destroying yourself for. If you're ready for a romance that'll have you on the edge of your seat, hit that like button right now, because this ending will wreck you in the best way possible. The penthouse smelled like bergamot and leather. Expensive, curated, cold. Quan Taiyang stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Manhattan skyline, his broad shoulders rigid beneath a black silk shirt that cost more than most people's rent. The tattoo of a phoenix curled up his forearm, disappearing beneath the rolled sleeve. His jaw was sharp enough to cut glass, his dark eyes calculating, always 3 steps ahead of everyone in the room, even when the room was empty. Tonight, it was empty except for him. And he was waiting. The Rolex on his wrist read 11:47 p.m. She was late. Again. Taeyang didn't move, didn't check his phone, didn't pour himself a drink from the crystal decanter that sat untouched on the marble bar. He simply stood there, a statue carved from control and quiet rage, and waited for the sound of her key in the lock. Because Zara Mitchell had been coming home late every Tuesday and Thursday for 5 weeks now, and Quan Taiyang, who built an empire on information, on knowing every secret before it became dangerous, had no idea where she went. But wait, here's where it gets crazy. That ignorance burned worse than the scar across his ribs from a rival's blade 3 years ago, because Taeyang didn't just want to know where Zara went. He needed to know. The kind of need that wakes you up at 3 a.m., the kind that makes a man who's never lost control start tracking someone's phone location, analyzing their credit card statements, reviewing security footage frame by frame. The kind of need that should have terrified him, but didn't. At 11:52 p.m., the lock finally turned. Zara stepped inside, her locks pulled into a high bun, her deep brown skin glowing under the recessed lighting. She wore jeans and a simple cream sweater, her backpack slung over one shoulder. She looked tired, beautiful, completely unaware that he'd been standing in the shadows for 2 hours. She kicked off her sneakers by the door, always so careful, so respectful of his space, and headed toward the kitchen. That's when Taeyang stepped into the light. "You're late." Zara jumped, pressing a hand to her chest. "Jesus, Taeyang, you scared me." "Answer the question." Her dark eyes narrowed. It wasn't a question, it was a statement. "Where were you?" "Out." His jaw tightened. "Out where?" "Does it matter?" She moved past him toward the refrigerator, pulling out a bottle of water. Her movements were graceful, efficient. She'd been working for him for 8 months now, and she'd learned to navigate his space like it was her own. That familiarity used to comfort him. Now it felt like a threat. "Yes," he said quietly. "It matters." Zara turned, leaning against the counter. The exhaustion in her eyes was real, but so was the defiance. "I work for you, Taeyang. I don't work for you. There's a difference. You live in my home. In the guest quarters, which I pay for with my labor." She unscrewed the bottle cap. "I clean a 15,000 square foot penthouse, manage your dry cleaning, coordinate with your chef, and make sure your life runs smoothly. What I do with my 2 nights off a week is my business." Taeyang crossed the distance between them in 3 strides. He didn't touch her. Didn't need to. He simply stood close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. Close enough that the bergamot of his cologne mixed with the faint floral scent of her body lotion. "Everything in my world is my business," he said softly. "Especially when it involves someone under my roof. Zara didn't flinch. Then maybe I shouldn't be under your roof. And here's what nobody tells you about powerful men. The words hit him like a blade between the ribs. Not because they were cruel, but because they revealed the one truth he'd been avoiding. He didn't want her to leave. Not her quarters, not his penthouse, not his life. She pushed off the counter, moving around him toward the hallway that led to her quarters. I'm tired. Good night. Zara. She stopped but didn't turn around. Taeyang's hands flexed at his sides. He wanted to grab her wrist, pull her back, demand answers until she broke. But he'd learned long ago that power wasn't always about force. Sometimes it was about patience. Who is he? The question came out rougher than he intended. Now she turned. Confusion flickered across her face. Excuse me? The man you're seeing. Who is he? For a moment, she just stared at him. Then, impossibly, she laughed. A short, disbelieving sound. You think I'm seeing someone? You disappear twice a week. You come back exhausted. You won't tell me where you've been. His voice dropped. What else am I supposed to think? Zara shook her head slowly, something like pity crossing her features. You're supposed to think that I have a life outside of scrubbing your marble countertops, Taeyang. That's what you're supposed to think. She walked away before he could respond. The door to her quarters closed with a soft click that echoed like a gunshot in the silence. What Kwon Taeyang didn't know, what he couldn't know, because Zara Mitchell protected her privacy like a fortress, was that Tuesday and Thursday nights weren't about a man. They were about survival. 18 months ago, Zara had been a fourth-year English literature major at NYU with a 3.9 GPA and a full scholarship. She'd been 3 months from graduating when her mother, her only family, was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The medical bills came faster than the hospital could print them. Zara dropped out, sold everything she owned, moved her mother into a hospice facility that drained her savings in 6 weeks. She worked 3 jobs, waitressing, tutoring, cleaning apartments. And it still wasn't enough. Her mother died on a Tuesday morning in October. Zara had $219 in her bank account and nowhere to live. That's when she saw the job posting. Live-in housekeeper for private residence, $18,000 a month, discretion required. She didn't ask questions, didn't care that the man who interviewed her had cold eyes and a reputation that made her Uber driver ask twice if she was sure about the address. She needed the money. She needed a place to sleep. She took the job. But here's the part that'll change everything you think you know about this story. What Taeyang also didn't know was that Zara had been using her nights off to finish what her mother's death had stolen, her degree. She'd re-enrolled at NYU as a part-time evening student, paying out of pocket with the money she earned scrubbing his floors. Every Tuesday and Thursday, she sat in lecture halls and wrote essays and reminded herself that she was more than the tragedy that had derailed her life. She was rebuilding, slowly, quietly, alone. And she'd be damned if she'd let her emotionally unavailable, criminally connected employer ruin that for her. The next morning, Zara found an envelope on the kitchen island. Inside was a black American Express card with her name embossed in silver. No note, no explanation. She left it there and made his coffee exactly the way he liked it. 2 shots of espresso, no sugar, a splash of oat milk. When Taeyang emerged from his bedroom at 7:30 a.m., immaculate in a charcoal suit, she set the cup in front of him without a word. He glanced at the envelope. You didn't take it. I don't need your credit card. It's not charity, it's access. To what? Whatever you need. He sipped his coffee, his gaze never leaving her face. Clothes, transportation, tuition. Zara's blood went cold. She set down the dish towel very carefully. What did you just say? Taeyang's expression didn't change. You're taking night classes at NYU, English literature. You're 3 credits away from finishing your degree. He tilted his head slightly. Did you think I wouldn't find out? For a moment, Zara couldn't breathe. Then the anger hit. You had me investigated. It wasn't a question. I investigate everyone. I work for you. I don't owe you my life story. You live in my home. His voice was maddeningly calm. That makes your life story relevant. If you're still watching, drop a comment right now telling me if you'd forgive him for this, because what happens next will test everything you think about trust. Zara grabbed the envelope and slapped it onto the counter in front of him. I don't want your money. I don't want your access. What I want is for you to stay out of my business and let me do my job. She turned toward the sink, gripping the edge of the marble to keep her hands from shaking. Behind her, she heard him stand. Felt him approach. Your mother's name was Gloria, Taeyang said quietly. She was a nurse. Pancreatic cancer. You dropped out to take care of her, and when she died, you had nothing left. Zara's eyes burned. You've been working yourself to exhaustion for 18 months, he continued, his voice closer now, right behind her. 3 jobs before you came here. You sleep 4 hours a night. You skip meals. And you're still trying to finish what she wanted you to finish. A tear slipped down her cheek before she could stop it. That's not weakness, Zara. His hand appeared beside hers on the counter, not touching, just there. That's strength. And I respect it. She wiped her face roughly. Then respect my choice to do it alone. What if you didn't have to? I don't need saving, Taeyang. I'm not trying to save you. His reflection appeared in the darkened window in front of them, his face unreadable. I'm trying to invest in you. There's a difference. Zara turned slowly. This close, she could see the faint scar along his collarbone, barely visible above his shirt collar. Could see the way his dark eyes softened just slightly when they met hers. Why? She whispered. For the first time since she'd met him, Kwon Taeyang looked uncertain. Because, he said finally, you're the first person in 5 years who hasn't wanted something from me, and I don't know what to do with that. What neither Taeyang nor Zara knew was that someone had been watching their morning confrontation through the penthouse security feed. His name was Jin Matsuda, Taeyang's oldest friend, his right hand. The man who'd helped him build the Huang Empire from a single shipping container operation into a network that moved everything from rare antiquities to classified information across 3 continents. Jin sat in his own apartment 15 blocks away, watching the security footage on his laptop, and felt something dark twist in his chest. Jealousy was an ugly thing. Especially when you'd been in love with someone for 7 years and watched them finally look at someone else the way you'd always wanted them to look at you. Everyone says jealousy destroys relationships. They're wrong. It destroys the person who can't let go. Jin had been there when Taeyang's ex-fiancée, Hana Lim, had betrayed him, had sold his shipping routes to a rival syndicate, and disappeared with $3 million in cash. Jin had been the one to find Taeyang afterward, beaten and bleeding in a warehouse, the Phoenix, tattoo on his arm still fresh, and the engagement ring still in his pocket. He'd been the one to help Taeyang rebuild, and he'd been waiting, patiently, quietly, for Taeyang to finally see him. But now there was Zara Mitchell, beautiful, principled, completely unaware that she'd become the most dangerous person in Taeyang's world because she made him soft. And soft men didn't survive in their business. Jin closed the laptop and made a phone call. It's me, he said when the line connected. I need information on someone. Zara Mitchell. Everything. Where she goes on Tuesday and Thursday nights. Who she talks to. Who she texts. He paused. And I need to know if there's anyone we can use to make her leave. Because if Jin couldn't have Taeyang's heart, he'd make damn sure no one else would either. Over the next 3 weeks, things changed. Taeyang stopped interrogating Zara about her nights away. Instead, he started leaving things for her. A new laptop on her bed with a note that said, "For your essays." A gift card to the NYU bookstore, a standing reservation at a quiet cafe near campus where she could study between shifts. Zara wanted to be angry about it, but the gifts weren't controlling. They were thoughtful. And that scared her more than his interrogations ever had, because she was starting to realize something terrifying. Kwon Taeyang wasn't just her employer anymore. He was becoming someone she looked forward to seeing. Someone whose rare smiles made her heart skip. Someone who sat with her at 2 a.m. when she was stressed about a paper, not saying anything, just keeping her company while she worked. The tension between them shifted. It became something electric, dangerous. One night, Taeyang found her on the balcony at midnight, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the city lights. He didn't ask permission, just sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "Thinking." "About?" Zara glanced at him. The moonlight caught the sharp line of his jaw, the way his dark hair fell across his forehead. "About how this got complicated." "This?" She gestured between them. "Whatever this is." Taeyang was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Do you want it to be simple?" "I don't know what I want." She pulled the blanket tighter. "You're my boss. You're also someone who terrifies half of Manhattan. And somehow, you're also the person who remembers that I take my tea with honey and leaves books on my nightstand that you think I'll like. Is that a problem?" "Yes, because I'm starting to forget why I'm supposed to keep my distance." Taeyang turned to face her fully. "Then stop keeping your distance." "Taeyang, I know what I am, Zara. I know what I do." His voice was low, intense. "But I also know that I haven't felt like a human being in 5 years. Not until you walked into my home and refused to be impressed by any of it." Her breath caught. "You make me want to be better," he continued. "Not for the empire, not for the business, for you." "That's a lot of pressure to put on someone," she whispered. "I know." He reached out slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, and tucked a loose lock behind her ear. "But I've never been good at wanting things halfway. Here's what I learned the hard way. When someone shows you who they are through their actions, believe them." Zara was about to learn this lesson too. Before Zara could respond, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and frowned. "That's weird." "What?" "My professor. She's emailing at midnight." Zara opened the message and felt her stomach drop. "She says there's been a complaint filed against me. Academic dishonesty. She wants to meet tomorrow to discuss my enrollment status." Taeyang's expression went cold. "That's impossible. You've never cheated." "I know that. But someone filed a formal complaint with evidence." Her hands were shaking. "If this goes through, I could be expelled. Everything I've worked for." "Show me the email." Zara handed him her phone. Taeyang read it twice, his jaw tightening with each line. Then he made a call. "Min, I need you to access NYU's administrative system. Now." He listened. "I don't care if it's illegal. Someone filed a false complaint against Zara Mitchell. I want to know who, and I want every piece of evidence they submitted." He hung up and looked at Zara. "This isn't random." "What do you mean?" "Someone's targeting you, and they're doing it to hurt me." It took Min exactly 47 minutes to crack the university system. What he found made Taeyang's blood run cold. The complaint had been filed by an anonymous source using a VPN, but the evidence, fabricated essays, fake timestamps, doctored correspondence, had been uploaded from an IP address that Taeyang recognized immediately. Jin's apartment. Taeyang stood in his office, staring at the information on his screen, feeling something inside him fracture. 7 years of friendship, 7 years of trust. And Jin had tried to destroy the one person who made Taeyang feel alive. Zara appeared in the doorway, her face pale. Did Min find anything? Taeyang closed the laptop. Yes. Who was it? He looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the fear she was trying to hide, the exhaustion, the desperation to hold on to the one thing she'd been building toward. It doesn't matter, he said quietly, because I'm going to fix it. Taeyang, trust me. He crossed to her, taking her hands in his. Can you do that? Trust me? Zara searched his face. Then, slowly, she nodded. Go to your meeting tomorrow, Taeyang said. Answer their questions honestly. I'll handle the rest. Jin arrived at the penthouse the next morning like he always did, confident, familiar, unaware that Taeyang knew everything. Taeyang was waiting in his office. We need to talk, he said. Jin closed the door behind him. About what? About why you tried to get Zara expelled from NYU. For half a second, Jin's mask slipped. Then he smiled, cold and bitter. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. Taeyang's voice was quiet, lethal. I have the IP records, the timestamps, the fake evidence you manufactured. He stood. Why? Why? Jin laughed, the sound hollow. Because I've spent 7 years watching you build walls around your heart, and the second some housekeeper walks through your door, you tear them all down for her? She's not... Don't. Jin's eyes blazed. Don't pretend this is about her degree or her mother or whatever sob story she sold you. This is about the fact that you finally looked at someone the way I've been waiting for you to look at me. The silence stretched like broken glass. I wasted 7 years loving someone who could never love me back. Here's what actually works. Letting go before it destroys you both. Jin, Taeyang said finally, his voice careful. I know. Jin's laugh was broken. You never saw me that way. I know. But I thought if I just waited long enough, if I just proved myself enough. He shook his head. And then she shows up. And suddenly you're buying her laptops and sitting with her at 2 a.m. and looking at her like she's the only thing in the room. So you tried to ruin her life. I tried to make her leave. Jin's voice cracked. Because loving you is killing me, and watching you love her is worse. Taeyang felt something in his chest twist painfully. You're my oldest friend, he said quietly. But if you ever come near Zara again, if you ever try to hurt her again, I will end you. Do you understand? Jin stared at him for a long moment. Then he turned and walked out. The door closed, and Kwon Taeyang sat down at his desk and called every contact he had at NYU. By the time Zara returned from her meeting, her complaint had been withdrawn. The fabricated evidence had been exposed as fraudulent. The anonymous source had been traced and discredited. Her professor had apologized profusely and assured her that her enrollment status was secure. Zara found Taeyang in his office, staring out at the city. It's done, she said softly. He turned. The complaint? Withdrawn, cleared from my record. She stepped inside. You're doing. Does it matter? Yes. She crossed to him. Because I need to know if you're protecting me or controlling me. Taeyang held her gaze. What's the difference? Protection is keeping me safe. Control is deciding what's best for me without asking. She stopped in front of him. Which one was this? Protection, he said without hesitation. Always protection. Zara studied his face, the exhaustion in his eyes, the tension in his shoulders. It was Jin, wasn't it? Taeyang didn't answer. He's in love with you, Zara said quietly. I know. And you chose me. I chose you the moment you told me I didn't own your nights off. Taeyang reached out, cupping her face gently. I chose you when you left my credit card on the counter. I chose you when you fell asleep on my couch with your textbooks scattered everywhere. His thumb brushed her cheek. I chose you, Zara. Every single day. Zara felt tears sting her eyes. I'm terrified, she whispered. Of me? Of this? Of wanting you? Of needing you? She pressed her hand over his. Of what happens when you realize I'm not worth the trouble. You think you're trouble? Taeyang's laugh was soft, disbelieving. Zara, you're the first peace I've felt in 5 years. He kissed her then, slow and deep and devastating. And Zara kissed him back, like she'd been waiting her whole life for permission to fall. Zara Mitchell graduated summa cum laude from NYU on a Saturday in May. Kwon Tae-young sat in the audience wearing a suit that cost more than most people's cars, surrounded by families with cameras and balloons, completely out of place and absolutely unbothered. When Zara crossed the stage, he stood and applauded until the people around him started clapping too. After the ceremony, he found her in the crowd, diploma in hand, eyes shining. Congratulations, he said. Thank you. She kissed him, right there in front of everyone. For everything. I didn't do anything. You did everything. She laced her fingers through his. You gave me space to finish what I started. You protected me when I needed it. You let me be strong. Taeyang pulled her close. You were always strong, Zara. I just made sure the world knew it. That night, back in the penthouse, Taeyang presented her with one final gift. A key. Not to his apartment. She'd had that for months. To a brownstone in Brooklyn. 3 stories. A garden. Space for an office where she could write. It's yours, he said. No strings, no conditions. Just yours. Zara stared at the key, then at him. Move in with me, Taeyang said quietly. Not as my housekeeper, as my partner, as my equal. He took her hand. Let me build something with you that isn't about empires or power. Something that's just ours. Zara looked at this man. This dangerous, complicated, surprisingly soft man who'd learned to love again because she'd refused to make it easy. Yes, she whispered. And Kwon Tae-young smiled, a real smile, the kind that reached his eyes, and kissed her like he'd finally found home. Here's the truth nobody wants to admit. Real love isn't about perfection. It's about choosing someone even when they're broken, even when they're difficult, even when loving them costs you everything. Taeyang and Zara didn't get a fairy tale. They got something better. They got real. If this story made you feel something, smash that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me which moment hit you hardest. Was it when Taeyang confronted Jin? When Zara found out about the investigation? Or that final proposal scene? Let me know below. And remember, love isn't always safe, but it's always worth fighting for.